before this episode, if you want to see the words as well as hear them, get exclusive content, access to the regular episodes before anyone else, and take part in the monthly questions and comments edition, you can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify and get all of that for the price of a very average coffee a month. Okay, let's get on with it. What is going on with Mackenzie Shirilla's parents? Everyone that's seen The Crash on Netflix has a view on Mackenzie, and everyone has questions about Mr. and Mrs. Shirilla.
Should she have been charged with reckless vehicular homicide, 2 counts?
I don't even...
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not if it was medical.
Listen, I'm the guy people think of when something doesn't sound right. So if I look at what they say and the words they use, we'll learn, do they enable Mackenzie? Do they really think she's innocent? And who do they think are the real victims of the crash? Welcome to Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I've studied the words of thousands of criminals so I can show you how people use words to lie, to cheat and manipulate, and what the truth sounds like too. If you're a regular here, this one is going to be right up your street. And if you're new here, you're going to learn how to look at someone's words to see what is really going on. So The Crash on Netflix. In my last episode, I looked at Mackenzie and the words that she used, particularly in the interview that she gave in the documentary. I don't believe she is as innocent as she'd like us all to believe. And I don't believe that she doesn't remember anything around the crash either. And I had so many requests to look at the parents, Natalie and Steve. They seem very supportive of Shirilla. What's driving that? And are these guys actually aligned with each other? I'm going to look at each of them individually when they talk. But first of all, I'm going to start with looking at them together. Now, what to listen out for as they talk. What concerns them? What is their priority? What is it that they are actually talking about? Listen to them do a lot of talk about what doesn't exist, what isn't there, what hasn't happened. They focus a lot on that. And also listen to the way they talk about Mackenzie. So, like I said, we're going to look at them together. This is a local TV news interview, first of all.
Show me one piece of evidence, one, that says she did this on purpose. Show it to me. Here it is. That's it. Then she's right where she belongs, and she's guilty of it. But there isn't any. There's no evidence what was going on in that car other than the information they gleaned from the black box information.
And these poor families think she did it intentionally, and she didn't. And and they don't know. There's information they didn't see. There's information they didn't have. There's information we didn't see or have.
Should she be in prison for murder?
No, absolutely not.
Should she be in prison for aggravated vehicular homicide?
I don't even know about that aggravated part.
I don't know about the aggravated part, because I don't think you can still say why was going on in the car. Should she have been charged with reckless vehicular homicide, 2 counts? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not if it was medical.
What kind of hopes, what kind of expectations do you have for Mackenzie's future?
That the truth will set her free. That's what I need to have happen. The truth, that there was no intent, that part, the truth will set her free.
Right, I've sat with those words and a lot more for hours this week, so let me break down what I have seen in them. It's a compilation of clips there. The first one is Steve saying, show me one piece of evidence, one that says she did this on purpose. Now, he talks a lot in the negative sense. I said they'll speak a lot about what hasn't happened, but you can pull out of his words some positive phrases, some things stated in the positive, and they are all damning of Mackenzie. I could pull them out as quotes and say, Dad said she did this on purpose. It would be an actual quote from him, shorn of a lot of the context there, but he does this a lot. She did this on purpose. He says, show me one piece of evidence, one that says she did this on purpose. Interesting that he says she did this on purpose, not anything horrific. He's softening what his daughter has done, or even what his daughter is accused of doing, which is murdering 2 young men in a deliberate car crash. He's just softened that all down to this. Notice also that he's only got one concept in his head, which is this. You know, he's not talking about multiple things. He doesn't say, show me one piece of evidence that said that this was a murder. This was not a murder. This was a tragic accident. That's 2 concepts. One he says doesn't happen, and one he said did happen. He just has the one, this, which is very soft compared to what actually happened. He says, show it to me. Here it is. That's it. Then she's right where she belongs and she's guilty of it. But there isn't any. once more, one of those statements that is pretty damning if I pulled it out. She's right where she belongs and she's guilty of it. He has that concept in his head for sure because he says it. It's very hard for us to say concepts in our head that aren't there. But again, just like Mackenzie, he is focused on what isn't, not what is. There is no evidence, there isn't any. Show it to me. I can't see it. He's not stating things in the format of, look, here's why I believe she's innocent. Here's why I believe it wasn't intentional. He's not doing any of that. He's talking about what isn't. His focus is on what isn't. He's not talking about what is. All about what isn't, not what is. And notice as well, his focus is on evidence, which is very legal. It's like a legal threshold about the evidence rather than being factual, not just show me one piece of evidence, show me something that says she did this, but it's evidence. So I think very much in the legal world here in his words. He carries on. There's no evidence what was going on in that car other than the information they gleaned from the black box information. Whoa. Pandora's box there. Once again, he's focused on the evidence and what isn't there rather than talking about what is. He's really focused on evidence. And then he says there is no evidence other than the evidence that does exist. So he's stating an absolute. And when people talk in absolutes, I always distrust them and want to dig in and see what's actually going on because life is very rarely 100% black or 100% white. Life is shades of grey. And when someone talks in a 100% black, 100% white, absolute way, it's very, very rarely true. And what that person is doing is talking in an absolute to broke no argument. There is no evidence. Right, okay, there's no evidence, then I'm going to stop now. If he said there was some evidence, then you go, all right, tell me about the evidence. Or there's little evidence, but there is some evidence. But no, he's saying no evidence, which I think is put there to give us, no room to argue with him because he says there's no evidence. But look, he says there's no evidence other than the evidence that exists, which is the black box information. So, and there's another absolute there, which is not true because there's no evidence of what was going on in that car. Well, Mackenzie does know some of what happened there. She's admitted she can remember lots of what went on in the car, just not the accident part, and he's ignoring that as well. So he's in real persuasive mode there against us. And then Mom picks up and says, and these poor families think she did it intentionally, and she didn't. And there's and they don't know. So once again, she's talking about the whole incident and just sort of softening it all. These poor families, not really mentioning any names or what happened to them. They're bereaved. They lost their sons. Just these poor families. Also, when we say these, we're very distant from it. These families, that's like families that I would see at the very bottom of the road walking across. Oh, there's these families crossing again. Rather than people that you know well and are very close to. There's next door neighbour crossing again. I'd actually name them, but no, she's got that distance there of these poor families. She also does one of those sort of embedded confession things. She does use the phrase, she did it intentionally. I could pull out, one of those movie posters with all the quotes from critics in it saying, a smash hit, etc. I could pull out a poster featuring the parents saying she did it intentionally and things like she's where she belongs. I could pull out that poster and say her parents said all of these things. They leave us lots and lots to work with. But then she says, and she didn't. And there's and they don't know. Well, the knowing is different from what actually happened. So again, there's this distance thing going on there. There's information they didn't see, there's information they didn't have, there's information we didn't see or have. Now, there's no expansion on any of this information. I think if there was this information, and I believe this information exists that they didn't see, they didn't have, they didn't see or have. She doesn't say it's information that would be good for Mackenzie, that would get Mackenzie off or anything. It's just this vagueness of information that she talks about. She doesn't expand on it at all. Interesting. If there was this information that the family should have seen and could have seen that would have made them think, oh, Mackenzie didn't do this. Why doesn't she tell us what it is? And again, it's all focused on what didn't happen, the information they didn't see, the information they didn't have, the information that they didn't see or have. Then the interviewer asks them, should she be in prison for murder? And we get a no. as the first response. It's a yes/no question, and we get a no straight away. So I believe there they don't think she should be in prison for murder. That's very different from did she murder someone, by the way, if you notice. It's not the same question as do you believe she's guilty of murder? It's just should she be in prison for murder? No. And then we get absolutely not, as if that makes it even more no. Absolutely not. So again, we're getting persuasive words there from the parents there. Absolutely not. Not just a no, but like a super no. Only there is only no. There's no such thing as a super no. When you do an absolutely not, it tells me you're trying very hard to convince me that that is the case. The next question, should she be in prison for aggravated vehicular homicide? And then they talk over each other. And my God, in that Netflix documentary, Steve likes to talk all over Natalie, and she's saying something and then he'll jump in. So Natalie starts to say, I don't even know about the aggravated part. And good old Steve says, I don't know about the aggravated part. So he just repeats what it is that she said. Now, interesting there, who's the leader? He's copying her, which would make her the leader there, but also he's taking over the role and, you know, almost like he doesn't trust her to say it. So he starts talking over her, but he says exactly what she was saying. So in that, let me know in the comments, who do you think is the leader in that little scenario there? Go back and listen to it again and just see if you can tell me who's leading there. Then Steve picks up and says, I don't know about the aggravated part because I don't think you can still say why was going on in the car. Now, I think he means what was going on in the car, but let's pick that apart. I don't think, so not you can't. He's just saying, I don't think. So it's said with low certainty. It's not one of these 100% absolutes. He's not saying you can't say what was going on in the car. He's just saying, I don't think. And then he says, I don't think you can still say what was going on in the car. Now, what is that still there doing? That suggests to me that something has changed. That, you know, there is a little bit more information come along there, and that something has happened that's maybe changed his mind as this has gone on, because that's why we use the word still. You know, I'm still sleepy means I was sleepy before, and, you know, nothing has changed, but the time has changed. So I am still sleepy. So what that still has got some movement of time that suggests to me that he maybe has changed his mind or learned more as time has gone on. And then he's really focused only on the car journey. It's the second time he's mentioned it here, and that he seems to act or think that the key to what went on was what was going on in the car. Not, what was going on before they got in the car. You know, like, was there a huge argument before they got in the car? Was this something that was built up to for weeks? Very possible, but he's just narrowing it down to what was going on in the car. Also, is that the phrase you would use if Mackenzie had a blackout, like she's claiming, and, you know, like Mom claims with the medical problem that she spoke about? Would you say what was going on in the car? It is kind of appropriate, but that suggests some more interactions going on there inside the car that he's either aware of or he thinks are there. Then he says, and this is interesting, he says, should she have been charged with reckless vehicular homicide 2 counts? Mom starts to say, I don't even, because she's going to say, I'm guessing, but we shouldn't assume, but I think it's I don't even think that. But he says, absolutely, absolutely. Now, he's using absolutely like a super yes this time. You know, should this happen? Absolutely, which again is persuasive. So, he is giving a sort of yes. I could go either way on that one. Does he really think she should be charged? I've got a feeling that he knows exactly or has a strong feeling exactly what went on, which is why he's at the absolutely mark, as if I don't want my daughter in prison for murder because that's not great for her life, but she does have to face some consequences for what went on. And, you know, he is saying, you know, absolutely, yes, it should be reckless vehicular homicide. Or is he just trying to be overly persuasive there? Look, you know, she deserves some consequences. And then Mom says, not if it was medical. Not if it was medical. So for all this conviction that she's been having blackouts for years, and still having blackouts, and it must have been a blackout that caused this, she's only saying if it was medical. So at the time of that interview, in her own words, Natalie has some doubt about what happened there. For all her strong words and so on, and, you know, backing her daughter, that 2-letter word gives away to me that she has no certainty that Mackenzie is not guilty of more than passing out while she was driving. Then the interviewer asks, what kind of hopes, what kind of expectations do you have for Mackenzie's future? Natalie says that the truth will set her free. That's what I need to have happen. The truth that there was no intent. That part, the truth will set her free. We've got controlling language there. She's talking about what she needs, not what she'd like, want, wishes, hopes for, because it's, what kind of hope do you have? But she talks about the need that she has. That's the language of someone who's used to controlling things and telling you what they need. The truth that there was no intent, legal term, intent, which I guess, she is jailed legally, but, that she didn't mean for this to happen. But again, it's negative. It's not the truth that she blacked out will come through. It's the truth that there was no intent. So again, focused on what didn't happen. And that part, the truth will set her free. Only that part of the truth is what she wants to come out, which is extremely interesting. So looking at the pair of them together, who's in charge? And certainly for me, I don't think they are as convinced. Their words say to me, they are not anywhere near as convinced as they'd like us to believe, that they intend for us to believe when they talk that Mackenzie is innocent. Let's dig into Natalie a little bit more now. And she spoke when Shirilla was when Mackenzie was in court. When Mackenzie Shirilla was in court, she spoke just ahead of sentencing to make a plea for softer sentencing. And we are going to listen to that.
I just want to say to the families that I'm broken, sad, and lost, and my heart hurts for everyone, okay? Davion was her new friend, and Dom was the love of her life, and he was part of our family, okay? I'm just so sorry that this happened, and we're heartbroken, okay? And then, Your Honor, this was a terrible, tragic nightmare accident to have happened that she has no memory of.
And this is why you guys wanted me to look at some of her words, I am sure, because this is just the most bizarre statement that I'm going to look at in this whole episode. She starts off her statement. I just want to say to the families that I'm broken, sad and lost, and my heart hurts for everyone. So she's trying to look like she's, gracious, that she's aware, she's empathetic towards the families, but it's all about her and her wants. I just want to say to the families, so she's acknowledging the families are there, that I'm broken, sad and lost, and my heart hurts for everyone. So it's all about her and her suffering. I want to say to the families, I'm broken, sad and lost, my heart hurts. Wow. No display of empathy there whatsoever. I think she wants it to be one, but she can't find the words to do it because I don't believe she has very much of it at all. My heart hurts for everyone, not for you, the families, not for the victims' families, the parents, the siblings, the wider family of two dead young men. Her heart doesn't, hurt for them, and it's her heart hurting. Specifically, it's for everyone. That includes me, in her words, and it includes her. And she's broken, and she's sad, and she's lost. It's all about her. And then she says something that she will say a lot throughout this statement. And let me put the word in at the end. She says, I just want to say to the families that I'm broken, sad and lost, and my heart hurts for everyone, okay? And she says, okay, a lot. Now, I look at the words that people use and why do they use them? Now, okay, at the end of something like that can be used if you are talking to someone and you want to check that they're following what you're saying. If I was explaining all of this, I'd say, we use that word to check in, are you getting this? Are you understanding this? Okay. And that's when you use it, you're expecting a nod or a yeah, or something like that, which says you can continue. You don't need to go over it or you don't need to explain any further. That's the okay. It can also be used in an ordering way. So this is what I want to happen, okay? And I think it's the second one that's going on there with her. She's that used to talking with command and telling people what to do. Mackenzie, you wilt out of your room, okay? And that is what I think is coming out there. Steve, you will go and do this interview with TMZ and you will make us look great, okay? That's the okay I think she is using. She continues, Davion was her new best friend and Dom was the love of her life and he was part of her family, okay? I'm just so sorry that this happened and we're heartbroken. Davion was her new best friend and Dom was the love of her life. Davion first, Dom second. What? That's interesting. The people that we mention when we're listing people in priority, the one most important to us, the one that's a bigger place in our life, would tend to come first and then in descending order of priority. I would expect Dom to be mentioned first because he was Mackenzie's boyfriend. And he was around the family a lot. He spent a lot of time with them. I would have expected him to be mentioned first and Davion second. But that's not the way. She leads with Davion first, and Dom gets relegated to second place, suggesting to me some issue with Dom, some issue with Dom's family. We'll come to that. Davion was her new best friend. Dom was the love of her life, and he was part of our family. So again, she's taking in ownership of this boy or young man. I think this again is like, look how nice I am. This is image management. We brought this person in to be part of our family, also part of our family and dead. So we are suffering. We are heartbroken. Then we've got the okay again. I'm just so sorry that this happened. Now, just is minimising here. She's many, many things. I'm just so sorry. There's a million and one other things that this happened again, just like we heard from Steve earlier. The horrible horribleness, the death of these two young men just softened down to this. Not anything specific. I'm sorry that you lost your children. Not said. Not said at all. It's just this happened. So it's very passive. There's no victim in this happened either. And we're heartbroken. Not we're heartbroken for you, just we're heartbroken. All about her again. So I think she talks for 7 minutes in this court thing. That's 20 seconds in where she's tried to show some empathy, but the words ring really, really hollow. And then she says, okay. And then, Your Honour, this was a terrible, tragic nightmare accident that she has no memory of, so moves into talking about her daughter and, trying to get a lighter sentence for her daughter. It's horrible. It's devoid of any real meaning, of any empathy. And as soon as she possibly can, when she thinks she's done it, but I don't believe she has it in herself to deliver authentic, heartfelt words of sympathy, empathy to the family of the victims, she moves on. And then she says, so that's that moving on, that's enough of that. And then I'm going to talk about something else. And then instead of just saying this was a terrible, tragic nightmare accident, she has to put the mitigating factor in that she has no memory of. So that's part one of her court thing. It gets worse.
Your Honor, this was a terrible, tragic nightmare accident to have happened that she has no memory of, and she will never emotionally or physically recover from it. She almost died too. And we're asking that you please not run the sentence as consecutive. He was family and we all loved each other. That morning of the accident, she called, I got a phone call that there was a car accident, okay? So we went to the hospital and I didn't even know who was in the car. The names had not been confirmed yet. And I'm gonna cry because I missed Dom so much. We loved him so much. So I called Dom over and over again, praying that he was going to answer the phone, and he didn't answer the phone. So then I tried to call his mom, and she didn't answer the phone either. And I still didn't know who was in the car. I didn't even know if she was alive. I didn't know what was happening.
Now this just gets really, really weird. It doesn't hang together at all. Let me show you. Your Honour, this was a terrible, tragic nightmare accident to have happened that she has no memory of, and she will never emotionally or physically recover from it. She corrects herself there. Never is in there. One of my favourite deceptive words. Never emotionally or physically recover from it. Well, maybe she won't now she's going to jail. Maybe she will still have some physical scars from it. But who were the victims again? Her victim and her ability to express herself around Mackenzie is way more than it was to express herself around Davion or Dom. You'll notice she's able to put words there. She'll never emotionally or physically recover from it. She has no memory of it. It was a tragic nightmare accident. But, all of a sudden, it's Mackenzie that was the victim of what happened here. She almost died too, more victim status. And we're asking that you please not run the sentence as consecutive. He was family and we all loved each other. Now, I think this is, again, it's image management. There was a lot of love going on. We all loved each other, so please go easy on Mackenzie. But saying he was family in front of his actual family when your daughter has been convicted of, found guilty of their murder, No. And also, you'll notice that he was family is one single person. So Davion has absolutely disappeared here. She's nothing to say about that guy at all. That morning of the accident, she called I got a phone call that there was a car accident. Okay, interesting correction there. The morning of the accident, she called. Now, she has to be Mackenzie here, am I right? That morning of the accident, she called and she stops and she corrects herself or restates herself. I got a phone call, which takes out the person who called. Did Mackenzie call her? And is she trying now to say, oh, well, that never happened, just someone called me. I got a phone call that there was a car accident. Okay, maybe it's a misspeak, but the way she said she called. So we went to hospital. And I didn't even know who was in the car. She doesn't say why she went to hospital. Just look at the literal words she's telling there. I don't think this is a true recollection of events, because I got a phone call to say there was a car accident, so I went to hospital. Well, for that to happen, you need to know who was involved. I didn't even know who was in the car. Even if they just told you Mackenzie was in the car, I didn't know who was in the car with Mackenzie would be correct. But listen, she is leaning on the I didn't know as some sort of excuse. She said the names had not been confirmed yet. So the names, again, there's that distance there. It's not who it was, it's the names of the people. Again, it's very process driven and doesn't actually speak of anything close to Davian and Dom. Had not been confirmed yet as well. Well, that is different from I didn't know who they were. The names had not been confirmed. So maybe it was these people might be there, or it looks like her boyfriend was in the car with her, but she just wants to just keep this I don't know what was going on thing going by saying the names had not been confirmed yet. And I'm going to cry because I miss Dom so much. We loved him so much. I don't believe that at all. But the big thing for me there, why go to hospital if she didn't know who? She carries on. And this is the weird bit. This, if you thought it was weird before, this is really weird. Wait till you check this out. So I called Dom like over and over again, praying that he was going to answer the phone, and he didn't answer the phone. So then I tried to call his mom, and she didn't answer the phone either. And I still didn't know who was in the car. I didn't even know if she was alive. So, she's gone right back to talking about Mackenzie there. But what she's saying there, I called Dom over and over again, praying he was going to answer. He didn't answer, so I tried to call his mom. She doesn't talk about calling Mackenzie. I didn't even know if she was alive. Well, there she's trying to say her priority was Dom and not her daughter. I don't buy that for a second. And everything she said, her daughter is the priority in this situation. And I would expect, quite rightly, in the situation she's describing, she'd be trying to call her daughter, which is interesting because I think she had spoken to her daughter already, because she said she called and then changed it. I didn't even know she was alive. I didn't know what was happening. Listen, it's a very strange passage where she seems to just have lost all concern for Mackenzie there whatsoever until the end. I didn't even know she was alive, but she doesn't mention trying to find out if she was alive, trying to call her. No, it's all about calling Dom and the family. And she doesn't say that she had any concern whatsoever. I didn't even know she was alive. She was just on her way to the hospital. She didn't know what was happening. A common theme from the Shirillas, as we shall see. Would you like some more from court?
So then we were in the waiting room, and then his mom she did call me, so I answered the phone, and I was like, oh my God, like, I don't even know who was in the car, like, what's happening, was that Dom? And she said, what do you mean, my son is dead? And I was like, I'm so sorry. And then she said something like, and now I have to wait until your kid's out of the hospital. And then I didn't hear the rest. I was like, we loved him so much, and I hung up the phone. I did not talk about social media. I didn't even know what was going on yet, okay? So then that was it. So in the hospital, that Vitality post, I commented on that because somebody had called her a murderer, okay? And she's not a murderer, so she didn't even have her phone at that point because the police had still had it, okay? So I jumped on, and I was like, she's not a murderer. She's more sad than most of these people commenting. She's been trying to get in touch with you. I mean, at that point, it was just an accident. So I commented on her behalf, not because of the modeling opportunity. Who cares about that? I don't want them to refer to her as a murderer, okay? And I don't even know how that comment got on the phone because the police still had her device, and she could not access her phone or social media. That's why I did it.
I said at the top of this episode, I'm the guy people come to when something doesn't sound right, and that didn't sound right, and I'm going to show you why that was. It's storytelling. It's and so storytelling, which is when someone doesn't just tell you events that happened, they tell you the reason behind the events because they want to explain themselves away. It's not just them talking about what's happened. They want to explain what happened, maybe narrate what happened so that you're on their side and they can get an explanation of events that they're being questioned for. And so storytelling, you will see as they talk and they're doing and so storytelling, and this happened, so this happened, and this happened, so this happened. Sometimes it might be together, and so this happened. She starts with the word so in that extract there, which is a good place to start if you're doing and so storytelling. So then we were in the waiting room, and then his mom ended up, she did call me, so I answered the phone, and I was like, oh my God, like I don't even know who was in the car. So this is and so storytelling. So we were in the waiting room, and then his mom, so and then is a jump in time, which also happens in storytelling when someone is skipping over something. And then I got up this morning, put my feet out of bed and then had a cup of coffee. I'm skipping over the part where I went to the bathroom, I walked down the stairs, I walked into the kitchen, switched on the coffee machine, found the milk was off, so, decided to have a black coffee, filled up the coffee machine, brewed myself a cup of coffee, sat down on the sofa, had a cup of coffee. I got up this morning, got out of bed and then had a cup of coffee, and then skips over things. Sometimes that can be for brevity. If I told you about my morning in such detail, you'd be walking away bored, so I would use and then so as not to bore you. But if I wanted to hide something, like, I robbed the bank in the middle of all that, I got up this morning and then had a cup of coffee. I just didn't mention the robbing a bank part. So she's jumping in time here, which is another storytelling giveaway. So we've got and so storytelling and then jumps in time. Mom ended up, she did call me. Now that phrase ended up got me interested. His mom ended up, she called me. Why not just his mom called me? Ended up is like, well, does it mean she finally called me? Is there some annoyance there that it took so long for Dom's mom to call Natalie there? Is that why we've got ended up calling me? Or has something else happened that she realised that some phone call was not going to happen that she was so much desiring, and then, she ended up calling me. But ended up just shows a little bit of, I think, annoyance going on there. And again, we ended up going out last night, skips over a whole lot of things again. So she is missing out a lot in this story to give a favourable impression. She did call me, so I answered the phone. Look, there's no need to tell us that you answered the phone. Why is she telling us that? Why is this extra? Why is she curating, I think, this story to look favourable to her? I was like, oh my God, like I don't even know who was in the car. Just like I don't even know in the car. Just, again, the like came up a lot when we looked at other people as well. And I do think that, this time it's signalling I was like this, but actually I wasn't this, This coffee's like real coffee, but it's decaf. This decaf's great because it's like real coffee. It's almost there, but it's not quite. I don't even know who was in the car. Well, wait a minute. You know that Mackenzie was in the car because you were in the hospital at that point. So I don't know who was in the car. It's going to absolutes. I don't know who else was in the car there, but she just wants to look like she's completely dumb and completely naive around to all of this. Like, what's happening? Was that Dom? And she said, what do you mean my son is dead? And remember that as we go through the story and this and so storytelling, because she knows at this point, Dom was in the car in her telling of the story. She knows now Dom is in the car and that Dom is dead. She continues. And I was like, I'm so sorry. And then she said something like, and now I'll have to wait until your kid's out of hospital. And then I didn't hear the rest. Don't know what relevance that has to anything. She carries on. I was like, we loved him so much. And I hung up the phone. I did not talk about social media. I didn't even know what was going on yet. Okay. So we've got that okay there at the end saying, believe this. So she was going to minimize something down there. I just did this, she did a lot more, I believe, and she's minimizing it to something small by using that real softening, minimizing word just. And then there's a correction there. She says, we loved him so much. So she realizes she's talking for herself and she wants to talk on behalf of the whole family, including Mackenzie. We loved him so much. Again, no sadness expressed. I'm so sorry to hear that. In her telling of this story, and this is not exactly what happened. This is what she wants us to think happened or wants us to know happened. It's not how sorry she was, because again, empathy seems to be completely missing from Natalie when she talks. She wants to talk about how great they were, how close they were to Dom, i.e., look, Mackenzie loved her. We all loved him. We all loved him. This couldn't have been a deliberate thing. I did not talk about social media. I didn't even know what was going on yet, okay? I didn't even know what was going on yet. It's a family trait. I don't know. Mackenzie, I don't know what happened in the accident. No, I don't know. I wish I could remember. I don't know. I know there was no intent. How I know that? Because I don't know what happened. But I didn't even know what was going on yet. Well, you knew there was a car accident. You knew your daughter was in hospital. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. You knew Dom was in the car and Dom was dead. So this is just something that, this naive, I don't know what's happening. I'm unaware of all sorts of things is something that she is playing on here, but it's not true because she said in her own words, exactly, she did know what was going on. She maybe didn't know everything that was going on, but she knew enough. And so storytelling continues. So then that was it. In the hospital, that Vitality post, I commented on that because somebody had called her a murderer, okay? And she's not a murderer. She would, I think she was going to say she would never do that. Rather than just stating it plainly, she's not a murderer. She's corrected herself from the sort of softening. She would never do that. That thing of like, someone's eaten the last biscuit. Was it Jack? Oh, he would never do that. Yeah, I would. That sort of thing, it's an assumption. Would never do that, rather than something solid like she's not a murderer, which is what she says there. I think there's a lot of that that's into a personal definition. What is a murderer? She thinks, if Natalie thinks a murderer is more a serial killer, or someone that stabs someone or shoots someone or something like that, not someone that crashes. That's not murder. That's just someone who was in a bit of a rage. This is a bit of an accident. Didn't mean that to happen. Then she can say she's not a murderer with some certainty. Lots of us would quibble about that. And so storytelling continues. And she's not a murderer, so she didn't even have her phone at that point. Interesting. Like at that point, she didn't even have her phone. Says she had her phone at other points, just in case that becomes relevant, because the police still had it. Okay. And when she makes one of those points, it's the, okay, you got that? Yep. Okay. So I jumped on and I was like, she's not a murderer. She's more sad and hurt than most of the people commenting. She's more, so this is Natalie talking about Mackenzie. She's more sad and hurt than most of these people commenting. Her boyfriend died in a crash that she was in. Her friend died in a crash that she was in. But some of the people commenting are more sad than hurt than Mackenzie. Wow. Mackenzie's more sad and hurt than most of the people commenting. Blew my mind. And look, she's trying to say she didn't know what's going on, but now she's got lots of information. She knows she's not a murderer. She knows how sad and hurt she is. Not buying this story whatsoever. She's been trying to get in touch with you. I mean, at that point, it was an accident, so I commented in her behalf, not because of the modelling opportunity. At that point, it was just an accident. That means at some other point, it's not just an accident. Now, I think what she might mean is, at that point, we all thought it was an accident, even though she's trying to claim she didn't know what was going on. But, at that point, it was just an accident. And then it became, is this murder? But as she tells this story, at every point, it's just been an accident. She could explain that and she could use words to say, at that point, everyone thought it was an accident before what happened next. But she doesn't do that. She says at that point, it was just an accident. That means, in her own words, at another point, it wasn't an accident. Who cares about that? This is the modelling thing. I don't want them to refer to her as a murderer, okay? And I don't even know how commented got on the phone because the police still had her device and she could not access her phone or social media. That's why I did it. This is not flowing. Right, it's really hard for me to read out because I'm saying words and they're not making a lot of sense here. This is what happens when someone is just telling you a curated story with lots of justification behind it and they don't really believe, they don't have the authentic words. When I told you the story about my morning, that's really what happened. So I was able just to flow through the whole story there. It's not flowing, it's juttery. It doesn't make sense. Words are all a bit strange. I believe here she's taking the blame for posting something on social media that Mackenzie did and got flack for doing that makes Mackenzie look really cold and whatever. And I think actually she's taken the blame for something that her daughter actually did, which is why her words don't seem authentic because it's not something that she did. I haven't forgot the dad, Steve. I'm going to break him down. He did an interview with TMZ this week. I'm going to have a look at that later on in this episode. Still to come, though, if Natalie there was taking the blame for the social media stuff, I think she took the blame for something else that Mackenzie got a lot of flack for, which we will see shortly. We'll go back to the episode in a moment, but if this breakdown hits home, make sure you're following or subscribe to this podcast, because what I'm doing here isn't just a one-off episode. We are building a skill. And like any talent worth having, it takes repetition. The more you hear these patterns, the more naturally you'll spot them in your actual life. I hear it from listeners so often. Eventually, you can't unhear this stuff. You'll be in a meeting or on a call, and you'll start noticing the subtext earlier than anyone else, which gives you an edge in how you respond. If you aren't ready to commit to training just yet, but you found this episode valuable, do me a quick favour. Leave a rating or share this episode. It's the best way to feed the algorithms and ensure these tools get into the ears of the people who genuinely need them. And if you want to be more careful with how you speak, to talk with more clarity, authority and confidence, then do search for my other podcast. It's available everywhere. Just search for How Words Work. Right, let's get back to the episode.
I had called them asking if they could shut down social media because people were calling her a murderer and making death threats and organizing groups to, take her out when she got out of the hospital and stuff. So I didn't even want her phone. I don't care about her phone. I don't care about social media. I just wanted them to stop calling her a murderer so that when she did come to, and she did come out of surgery, multiple surgeries, that she wouldn't see all these people calling her a murderer, because she would never, ever, ever murder the love of her life. Okay? For Halloween, for 3 months after the accident, she would only wear his clothes. She would only eat the snacks he ate. She would only listen to the music he wrote, okay? She was laying in bed for 3 months crying. There was a shrine of him next to her with photos and things that he liked, and this flower that lights up that he got her because he wanted it to be fresh and alive forever. It's like a little Beauty and the Beast flower. Okay, she's got this shrine of him next to her. So she was crying for 3 months. So her friends asked if she wanted to go out trick-or-treating or so Halloween. And it was at OU. And she didn't even want to go. She said, I don't know, should I go? She couldn't even walk yet, barely. So I told her, I said, baby, please go. It's Halloween. You've been laying for 3 months crying, only listening to his music. Please go have just a moment of fun. A moment of fun. So we told her to go.
And, I had called them, I believe this means the police, asking if they could shut down social media because people were calling her a murderer and making death threats and organising groups to, take her out when she got out of hospital and stuff. So I didn't even want her phone. I don't care about her phone. I don't care about social media. I just wanted them to stop calling her a murderer. Oh, hold up. Your daughter's been called a murderer. I can understand. That's not nice. People are making death threats against your daughter. I understand you would want to protect your daughter. People are wanting to take her out when she got out of hospital. That's even worse than a death threat. That is wanting to kill her when she comes out of hospital. All of those things, not nice. Being called a murderer, death threats, people saying they're going to kill you. Those things are not nice. But she then says, I just wanted them to stop calling her a murderer. No, I went to the police and tried to, reported these death threats and wanted, to have people, look into this and keep my daughter safe and protected. No, she just didn't want them to be calling her a murderer. So the death threats thing, don't think that was an issue for her at all. It was what she was being called, a murderer. They may not even have happened. So that when she did come out of surgery, multiple surgeries, and she has to point out, again, we're the victims here, it wasn't just surgery, it was multiple surgeries, that she wouldn't see all these people calling her a murderer because she would never, ever, ever murder the love of her life. Okay? She would never, ever, ever murder the love of her life. That's trying way, way, way too hard. And it's not she did never, ever, ever. She did never, ever. This did not happen. It's would. It's in the future. It's talking about her character rather than talking about the facts of the situation. And then she went on to talk about Halloween, which is something that Mackenzie went off to the Halloween party in a corpse, dressed as like a corpse. And it looked really, really bad as well. And I think this is Natalie taking the rap for that as well. The Halloween. For 3 months after the accident, she would only wear his clothes. She would only eat the snacks he ate. She would only listen to the music he wrote. Okay? She was laying in bed for 3 months crying. She's talking in absolutes again to paint a picture, to make us feel sorry for her, to make us think how sad she was. She would only eat the snacks he ate. Do you believe that? Not to that extent. She would only listen to music he wrote. I don't believe that either. For 3 months, no, I don't believe that. She would only wear his clothes. Don't believe that either. She was laying in bed for 3 months crying. I guess she's maybe talking metaphorically there, but she's going to the extremes to convince us because she feels if she told the truth that, for 3 months after the accident, she wasn't herself or she was depressed. She doesn't feel she would be believed. So instead, she has to go to these stupid extremes to convince us. She says there was a shrine of him next to her with photos and things that he liked in this flower that lights up that he got because he wanted it to be fresh and alive forever. It's like a little Beauty and the Beast flower, okay? She's got this shrine of him next to her. Now, let's talk about the shrine. There was this shrine of him next to her with photos and things that he liked. So the photos, yeah, fine, and then things, just things. It gets very generic and flabby here. This flower that lights up because he wanted it to be fresh forever. It's like a little Beauty and the Beast, not exactly what it was, just something that it's like. And then she says, okay, she's got this shrine of him next to her in the present tense. Not in the past tense, but in the present tense, which is something people do when they're talking about past events, but making them up. So I don't think this shrine was all that. She was crying for 3 months. So her friend asked if she wanted to go out trick-or-treating. There's a Halloween. It was an OU, and she didn't even want to go. She didn't even want to go. Not she didn't want to go. She didn't even want to go. She said, I don't know. Should I? Could go? She couldn't even walk yet. Barely. So once more, victimness there. She couldn't even walk yet, and then she ruins it all with barely. So she could walk, just maybe not very well. But also, did Mackenzie want to go or not? Because she says she didn't want to go, but then Mackenzie's the one asking, should I go? Well, you wouldn't ask that unless you wanted to go. So I told her, I said, baby, please go. It's Halloween. You've been laying for 3 months crying, only listening to music. Oh, poor Mackenzie. Please go and have a moment of fun. A moment of fun. So we told her to go. So I believe this is them taking the rap for the Halloween thing too. So the two things that are bad that Mackenzie did, or people think are bad that Mackenzie did, I believe Mackenzie did do them, but this is Natalie taking the rap for them, willing to say, to lie, basically, in my opinion, so that people don't think badly of Mackenzie. And if this hasn't all been bizarre enough, we're about to hear one of the most jaw-dropping bits of audio I've heard. Just listen to the judge in this part here.
What was the other thing?
I'm hearing an awful lot about your daughter. I'm not hearing very much about the two dead.
Dominic, okay, I'm asking you for leniency because this was a tragic accident that she does not remember. And Davion, he's a new friend. And I'm so sorry.
Does that mean his life is worthless?
No. God, no, not at all. They all loved each other. They all spent every day together. You know what I mean? I don't know too much for him.
Isn't that part of the problem, Mrs. Shirilla?
Sorry?
Isn't that part of the problem, that they all trusted each other? Isn't that part of it?
It's not a problem at all. It was wonderful.
How they all ended up in the car together and two ended up today.
I understand what it looks like. I'm saying that it was a tragic accident. She would never.
Well, we're going to have to disagree on that.
I understand.
Right. And I respect the position.
I understand. But anyway, that's it. I just wanted to address those. We told her to go to those things, and then she did go with Dom's family. So look at that. Don't look at it with look on that with different eyes if you can, please.
Those things are not relevant.
Not at all. But she's a good. If you would have a moment, all you would need is 5 minutes of a conversation to have with her to learn who she is. Just that you would just need 5 minutes to learn who she is and what she's capable of not doing and doing, and you would see for yourself. That's all. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I love you.
I'm going to show you why I think that is one of the worst character references ever. It starts off badly as well, that segment there. She forgets what she was going to say. What was the other thing? I get there's nerves. I get this is maybe one of the most important statements you've ever delivered in your life. But what was the other thing? Not great. Not full of conviction. And then the judge interrupts and says, I'm hearing an awful lot about your daughter. I'm not hearing very much about the two dead people. The judge, obviously, you know, me and the judge like that because we're thinking the same thing. This is all about her. And Natalie says, Dominic, okay? So that's the name. Great, you said his name. So tell us something else about these other people. You know, you've been prompted there. Say something about these other people. And I've said I don't think she has anything to say. I don't think she has anything nice to say at all. She's very low on empathy here. So she said the name Dominic. She could now go on and talk about Dominic. Instead, she says, I'm asking you for leniency because this was a tragic accident. She does not remember. Repeating that again. You know, it's horrible. She's just moved. She's been prompted. Talk about the victims here. And instead, she says, I'm asking you for leniency because this was a tragic accident. She does not remember. Again, it's focused on not. She doesn't remember. You know, something that this family do a lot. Don't remember things, don't know things. Not, she noticed she doesn't say she didn't do it on purpose. She doesn't say that at all. She says she does not remember. So the stories they're telling about this this accident, they're not congruent. They sort of contradict each other at times. And Davian, trying to find the right words to say. He's a new friend. I'm so sorry. Judge says, what does that mean? That his life is worthless? And she says, no, God, no, not at all. They all loved each other. So he'd gone from barely knowing this guy, the new friend, to knowing he was very close and they all loved each other. You know, saying that there was love here there's a repeated concept of her in this statement to the court. I think she wants to get across there was so much love. This could not have been on purpose, but you know, which she actually was thinking on the hoof because she's like, oh, I've been told to mention these people. Dom, can't think of anything to say about him, so I'll say, please give me leniency. And then Davian, he's a new friend. I don't have very much to say. And then she has to go, oh, I'll fall back on the other things I had planned to say. We all loved each other. They all spent every day together. You know what I mean? I don't know. The judge says, isn't that part of the problem? And she says, sorry, because she's buying thinking time there and going, could you explain a little bit more? Because I don't know how to react to that. The judge expands. Isn't that part of the problem? They all trusted each other. Isn't that part of, she says, no, it's not a problem at all. It was wonderful. Now, I know what she's trying to say there, but it's a strange word to use when the relationship, the way they formed this, was the cause of their death. It was a problem how they all ended up in the car together, says the judge. Two of them ended up dead. I understand, she says. I understand what it looks like. Well, only understands what it looks like. I'm saying that it was a tragic accident. Not it was a tragic accident, just I'm saying it was a tragic accident. Again, I think just letting us in on her thought process here, that it's very important for her to be, I'm saying it was a tragic accident. She would never, we've spoken about that before, it's not she did never, it's she would never. The judge says, we're going to have to disagree. I understand, she says. Right. And I respect your position, says the judge, but I disagree, which is just great from the judge there. I understand, says Natalie. But anyway, that's it. And she introduces a but there. And when we use a but, everything that comes after the but is a priority to us. It's more important. So I understand, but I have something more important to say, which is I just wanted to address those. We told her to do those things. This is going back to the Halloween, going to the Halloween party dressed as a corpse, the social media. We told her to do those things. Now, notice her story's changed there because the story was I did one of those things. It was me that posted on social media. We told her to go to the Halloween event. Instead, it's now we told her to do those things. So she's expanded this now. Her story's not congruent. I just believe that, Mackenzie did these things that Mackenzie's accused of doing and she's covering up for her. And then she did go with Dom's family. So look at that. Don't look at it with look at that. Look on at that with different eyes if you can, please. So this is her priority. I wanted to address those things. We told her to do those things. Please look at them differently. That's her priority, which is interesting because when the judge says those things are not relevant, she says, not at all, not at all, not at all. Agreeing and pacifying with the judge. If they weren't relevant, why raise them? She's agreeing they're not relevant with that, not at all, but she's raised them. And then she gives a character reference. But she's a good. If you would have a moment, all you would need is 5 minutes of a conversation to have with her to learn who she is. to learn who she is, not what a great person she is. You'll notice she says she's a good, if you would have a moment. She doesn't say she's a good person, she's a good daughter, she's a good girlfriend, anything like that. She's a good, and she can't even finish that thought off. If you would have 5 minutes, you would learn who she is. Now, you know, when we say the phrase who she is, something we use a lot when someone is bad. You know, I know who he is. I know who you are now. You know, we don't say that about a good person. We say that about a bad person. And she said, just learn who she is. Just that. You would just need 5 minutes to learn who she is and what she's capable of not doing and doing. And you would see for yourself. That's all, is what she says. What she's capable of not doing. How do you spend some time with someone and know what they're capable of not doing? You wouldn't. This is the worst character reference ever, because she doesn't say anything good about her daughter. But she's a good... Doesn't finish. We don't know what she's a good. If you would have a moment, all you would need is 5 minutes of a conversation with her to learn who she is. At the very best, that's a neutral term. Just learn who she is. Not how nice she is, what a good person she is, just who she is. So she hasn't said anything good about her daughter in the first half of this character reference. Just that you would need 5 minutes to learn who she is. Just repeating herself, but still not saying anything good. What she's capable of not doing. Doesn't expand on that. So it doesn't say she's not capable of malice or, you know, anything like that. Just you would learn what she's capable of not doing and doing. Doesn't expand on what she can do as well. You would see for yourself. See what? She doesn't expand on that at all. That's all. It is just an awful, incomplete character reference. And then she says, I'm so sorry, guys. I'm sorry. And I love you too, Shirilla. So there is Natalie in court. Horrible, just no empathy. I believe, in my opinion, that she's taken the rap for a couple of things that Mackenzie was massively criticised for, in that I did not do her, and such an awful character reference, did not do her daughter any good at all. Right. Let's look at Dad. Let's look at Steve. This week he has been talking to TMZ like this.
Where she apparently didn't even try to apply the brakes, and she was going extremely fast. So on the marijuana side, which seems to be pretty relevant, what do you say about that?
In the documentary, that is part of a longer answer. That was one part of, and I can't remember what the question was, because the documentary people had interviewed us for 2 days straight and then came back and did more interviews. So there was a lot of questions answered. My answer wasn't, my answer, how to explain this, wasn't in support of marijuana, and it wasn't saying I'm smoking marijuana. What I was saying is that who am I to say who can smoke and who can't smoke? Now, I never allowed my daughter to smoke marijuana. How was I stopping her? You know, I couldn't lock her up in her room. I'm not quite sure where there's a problem with what I said. It was never, hey, everybody go smoke marijuana. Hey, you should, you know, it's, I don't understand why the documentary felt the need to put that in there. I don't know what the relevance was to my daughter in this accident she was in.
He's stuttering his way through this as well. He's having a hard time choosing the right words to say. The question, she apparently didn't even try to apply the brakes, and she was going extremely fast. So on the marijuana side, which seems to be pretty relevant, what do you say about that? Steve's answer, in the documentary, that's his first stutter, there will be many more. That is part of a longer answer. This is classic. You don't have the context here. That was one part of, and I can't remember what the question was, because the documentary people had interviewed us for 2 days straight and then came back and did more interviews. So there was a lot of questions answered. Now, right here, he's avoiding the point that's put to him, which was a question about many things. She didn't apply the brakes. She was going extremely fast. Marijuana. He doesn't deal with any of that. Instead, he talks about the rigors of making a documentary, all the questions that were put to him. What is going on there? Is it that he doesn't want to take on some of the things like the speed, like the brakes not being applied? Or is it that he wants to head off some of the marijuana comments, which he is getting a lot of criticism for, but he avoids the point that is put to him to stutter his way through how hard it was to be interviewed. And once more, he can't remember the questions. Bad memory plays really well for this family. And then he says, my answer wasn't. My answer. How do I explain this wasn't in support of marijuana? It wasn't saying I'm smoking marijuana. What I was saying is that who am I to say who can smoke and who can't smoke? well, you're the person that can tell your daughter what to do, I would have thought. Now, I never allowed my daughter to smoke marijuana. Never comes up there. Never sounds like such a solid word, but so often used in a very weird sense that doesn't mean it in as concrete as a strict definition of it. So did he not at any time allow his daughter to smoke? I don't know. How was I stopping her? You know, she was, I can't, couldn't lock her up in her room. I'm not quite sure where there's a problem with what I said. I'm not quite sure where there's a problem with what I said, that boils down to, but not quite sure, i.e., I've got some ideas. I know there's a problem with what I said, but I'm going to pretend that I don't by saying I'm not quite sure. I was never, hey, everybody go and smoke marijuana, is what he said. Hey, you should, so stuttery. I don't understand why the documentary had felt the need to put that in there. Blaming the documentary. He said it. No, I don't understand why I said it. Why I said it is I don't understand why the documentary had felt the need to put that in there. So he's blaming someone else for something he said. I don't know what the relevance was to my daughter in this accident she was in. Again, very passive. This accident she was in. Common theme with these guys is softening what happened. Tragic accident she was in. Other people were in it as well, and they didn't survive. So here, he blames the documentary for putting it in, rather than himself for saying it, which is an interesting choice. And he doesn't share Mackenzie's reaction to any of the conversations that he had around smoking with her at all, does he? He doesn't say what she said, how defiant she might have been, how she listened and went, yeah, all right, or how he thought the message had got through, but she was, didn't pay any attention. That's very interesting. Mackenzie's reaction, any of Mackenzie's side of the story, completely missing from what he says. Do you want another bit of Steve with DMZ?
When you say her innocence, explain that, because to most people, she was behind the wheel and
there was no braking.
Well, yeah, she was. There is zero evidence of intent and prior calculation in this case. There's no evidence, and the only evidence the prosecution actually has is 4.74 seconds of black box information. Your car has a black box like the airplanes, but it doesn't record the cabin sound, all that. It's mechanical, and it is a nonlinear recording. And what happened, or what our car expert said happened, was that the car was, I can't explain the speed. First of all, I have no idea. Nobody is ever going to know what happened in that car. It's not that the car was going fast. It's not that the car crashed. It's why. There's no explanation of why. And the prosecution, even in this documentary, says, look, I turned over every rock. I looked at everything and I couldn't find anything. So it's murder. So she did it on purpose. This prosecutor, in my opinion, is lazy. It's like the wife dies and they instantly think it's the husband. So there's so much in this case, and there's so much omittance of evidence and changing of evidence and illegally changing evidence.
He's focusing on what isn't there again. When you say her innocence, the question is, when you say her innocence, explain that, because to most people, she was behind the wheel and no braking. And he doesn't really take on the question. He doesn't, in that question, explain her innocence. What he talks about is what doesn't exist again. Yeah, she was there is zero evidence of intent and prior calculation. Again, he's focused on evidence, very legal, but zero evidence of something doesn't mean that it didn't happen. You have zero evidence that I had a coffee this morning. But I did. Just because you have zero evidence of it doesn't mean it didn't happen. But he's relying on the fact of whether evidence exists or doesn't. And once more, he does that thing that we saw him do in the first interview, where he says there's zero evidence and then gives evidence. In this case, there's no evidence. And the only evidence the prosecution actually has is 4.74 seconds of black box information. So once more, there's no evidence apart from the evidence that's there. Once more, your car has a black box like the airplanes, but it doesn't record the cabin sound, all that. It's mechanical and it's a non-linear recording. And what happened, or what our car expert said happened, was that the car was, I can't explain the speed. First of all, I have no idea. Right. So much to dig into there. What happened, or what our car expert said happened, that's an interesting one. He was going to tell us what happened, and then he says it's just someone's opinion of what happened. So again, he's a chance to talk with some certainty and some belief here, and he doesn't. He says it's someone else's view, although he doesn't actually ever go on to explain what the car expert said happened. He says, I can't explain the speed. First of all, I have no idea. Now, when we say no idea, we very often do have an idea. It's not I don't know. Here's a classic example for you. If you were to say to me, Jack, how much do you think I weigh? I might say I have no idea, because I do have an idea. I've got a range of ideas. I might be quite good at guessing people's weights and so on, but I don't want to be offensive. So unless a low ball, which might just look a little bit obvious, I might go, I have no idea, but I do have ideas. When we say I have no idea, we're trying to pretend that we're just clueless, but actually we do have ideas. An answer like, I don't know, how much did I weigh when I was born? I don't know. Right, I don't know. Could ask me mum, I suppose, but anyway. Nobody's ever going to know what happened in that car. We're theme with him. He's focused on exactly what is happening in the car. It's not that the car was going fast. It's not that the car crashed. What? He's focused on telling us, not to look at the fact that the car was going fast and not to look at the fact the car crashed, even though those are two of the biggest reasons that two young men are dead. It's not that the car was going fast. It's not that the car crashed. It is. It's exactly about that, Steve. Don't tell me it's not about that. I dislike you very much for trying to say that to me. Nobody's ever going to know what happened in that car. Again, it's the focus of what happened in that car, rather than the bigger picture. This is this little mystery in the locked box that they seem to be hanging on to, rather than looking at a much wider picture, saying there's no evidence when there is that evidence. And then he says, it's why there's no explanation of why. There's plenty of explanations of why. It's gaslighting, basically, Steve. And the prosecution, even in this documentary, says, look, I turned over every rock, I looked at everything, and I couldn't find anything. I'll tell you what, I looked at the documentary, I don't remember that at all. So it's murder. So she did it on purpose. And here he is again with these quotes I could pull out and put in a movie poster. Mackenzie Shirilla's parents say, so it's murder, she did it on purpose. The prosecutor is, in my opinion, is lazy. It's like the wife dies and they instantly think it's the husband. So there's so much in this case, and there's so much omittance of evidence and changing of evidence and illegally changing evidence. Once more, just like earlier, just like with Natalie, no expansion on what was omitted, what was changed, what was illegally changed. What is there that you could talk about that would let us go, oh yeah, maybe she did do that without intention. So that's the parents of Mackenzie Shirilla, Natalie and Steve. So in conclusion on them, her parents show scant regard for the victims, if any whatsoever. And that's entirely noticeable through everything that I've looked at them speaking, that their empathy with these victims is really, really low. Both of them. All the concern is on their daughter. None on the victims whatsoever. In court, Mom was taking the blame for some of the outrageous behaviour attributed to Mackenzie. In my opinion, I'm so sure of that. And these guys also, look at what's missing. There is no desire to help the victims' families know what happened. It's all about protection of Mackenzie. There's nothing to say, we want to get to the truth just as much as the families do. We want to get to the bottom of what happened. None of that is there whatsoever. So let's look at the Shirilla family values, things that show up in Mackenzie and Natalie and Steve. There's a big focus amongst all three of them on what isn't. Just talking about what doesn't exist rather than the focus on what happened, what does exist, what facts are, what real life tells them. They much rather focus on stuff over there that doesn't exist. Go look at the stuff that isn't there. Focus on that and not all the stuff that's known. Listen, claiming no knowledge when things get tricky is something that's very big and runs through Mom and certainly Mackenzie as well. I don't remember. I didn't know what was going on. I'm sort of oblivious and naive. I really don't know what's happening. Comes through in all of them. And notice that, there's all this focus on the blackout, the so-called blackout, that there couldn't have been any intent. Mom mentions it just once in that interview. Dad doesn't mention it whatsoever. So, look, are they enabling Mackenzie? Yeah, I think they are. Do they believe she's as innocent as they'd like us to think? I think they have as many doubts as most of the people that watched the Crash documentary as well. Who do they think are the real victims? Their daughter and themselves. The empathy for the victims is not there very much, and I don't like that. What do you think? Let me know in the comments if you can. Let me know on social media. You'll find the links to all the socials at neveratruerword.com, where you'll also find a whole load more episodes, including other ones on Netflix documentaries, if you want to take a deep dive into some of the words used in some of the biggest Netflix documentaries, or trials, just like we listened to Mackenzie's mom talk at a trial. If that's your sort of thing, then you will find all those listed at neveratruerword.com. We'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word, and remember, the truth is always in the words.